Yeah, we're good to go.
We're good to go?
Yes.
Okay, I will call this meeting to order at 10:01 a.m. And I'll start by reading the land acknowledgement. The city of Thorold is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Daronk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. I'll then ask if there are any declarations of interest before we move on. Seeing none. Okay, so Justin had sent out the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda?
Yeah.
So Linda and Helen, thank you. And can I ask the question then, all in favor? Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Similar for the minutes from our last meeting, which was a long time ago, July 5th. Can I get a mover and a seconder to adopt those minutes? Councillor Longo and Helen, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? No, then that is also carried. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to move right into a presentation from the Food Cycle Science Municipal Pilot Program. Justin, are you letting them in?
Yep, they should be in right now. Here we go. They're coming on now.
Okay. So then I'll call on Maddie Fromm and Jacob Hanlon for their presentation on Food Cycle Science Municipal Pilot Program.
Hey everyone, let me just share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay. Can you all see that? Yep. Perfect. Okay. So good morning, councillors, staff, and all committee members. Thank you so much for having us this morning. My name is Maddie, and I'm the Municipal Solutions Business Development Representative here at Food Cycle Science. And I'm here today to discuss a food waste diversion opportunity for Thorold. Before I start, I will say that I'm aware that Thorold receives green bin and waste management services from the Niagara region. I'm only here to present information on an option that complements your existing program and increases participation in food waste diversion. So Food Cycle Science is a Canadian company based out of Ottawa that's 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions. We do this using our innovative technology called the Food Cycler. Our in-home food recycler is sold direct to consumers, to businesses, to classrooms through partnerships with not-for-profit organizations, and to municipalities through our Food Cycler Municipal Solutions Division, which is why I'm here to talk to you today. So we're currently working with more than 150 Canadian municipalities across 9 provinces and 2 territories, all the way from rural and remote areas, and then to highly populated cities. You can find us. Nearby to you, we have programs in Brant County, Norfolk County, and a little further away in Windsor and King Township. These communities all have the same thing in common. They have all faced challenges with waste management or landfill capacity and are looking for a way to keep food waste out of their landfills. The problem with food waste is that it's avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of our household waste, often a majority, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which, as you know, is heavy and it freezes in the winter. On top of that, food waste in landfills is responsible for generating the harmful greenhouse gas methane. All of these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. One of the impacts to municipalities is that since food waste makes up such a large portion of our waste stream, it's causing our landfills to fill up quickly. Operating a landfill is costly, so we want to extend the lifespan of them for as long as possible. The environmental impact is that organic waste in landfills produces methane gas, as I mentioned, which is 25 times more harmful than CO2. So to put that into perspective, taking 1 ton of food waste out of the waste stream is the equivalent to taking 1 car off the road for an entire year. And then in our communities, putting food waste in the garbage or even the green bin causes odors, which is unpleasant for humans, of course, but it also attracts animals like bears and raccoons who, love to rummage through our trash. So removing food waste from the garbage eliminates these issues and it reduces volume. So we often get asked, haven't we solved this already? And yes, there are green bins, which you have. However, we have seen across the country that green bin programs struggle to get above a 40 to 60% participation rate, meaning that a lot of organics just end up in the landfill anyway. King Township, whose upper tier is York Region, decided to implement food cyclers in their community for the purpose of helping to improve the green bin usage. And then many people in your community might backyard compost, and we think that is a great solution. But unfortunately, backyard composting is also not feasible for everyone. And it's certainly not a year-round solution. There are still concerns about bears and other animals as well. And then finally, the easiest solution is to throw your organic waste into the landfill. But as mentioned before, the long-term impacts are costly and harmful to the environment. So at Food Cycler, we've proposed a different way to manage food waste, which focuses on making food waste easy to deal with and right in our homes. Essentially, we've created a small kitchen appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine, where you put your food waste in. That can include some meat, poultry, fish, dairy, even bones. You press a button, and in a matter of hours, you have a dry, sterile, odorless, nutrient-rich soil amendment. The machine can be used anywhere with a plug. Most people keep it in their kitchen, basement, or perhaps a heated garage. On average, it will process 1 to 3 kilograms of food waste per cycle. Each cycle takes between 4 or 8 hours to complete and uses about 1 kilowatt hour of power, which is the equivalent to having a computer plugged in for the same amount of time. The resulting soil amendment can be used in gardening, in your existing composting system. It can be given to a local farm, processed with leaf and yard waste systems, or put into the green bin. So here's a look at our 2 units that we would recommend to your municipality. You have the Eco 3, which holds 3.5 liters of food waste, and the Eco 5, which holds 5 liters. Both units come with a refillable carbon filter that eliminates smell from processing. And the Eco 3 would be designed for smaller families or spaces such as apartments or condos. The Eco 5 would be more suitable for a bigger family or a home with more space. We like to show this image as it's a good depiction of the reduction in volume you see when running the food cycler. A cycle will achieve a reduction in volume by 90%. So it leaves you at the end with about 100 grams of the soil amendment. The byproduct created during the process is completely dry and inert biomass that has many beneficial uses. So most people will use it to fertilize their gardens, but you can also add it to a backyard composter, as mentioned, into your leaf and yard waste system. You could pelletize it and use it as a home heating alternative, or drop it off at a compost site, a local farm, community garden, or for the world, add it to your green bin. So from an environmental standpoint, the food cycler is a net negative carbon solution. And that means, just like planting trees or using solar panels, when you use a food cycler to avoid bringing food waste to a landfill, you're actually avoiding more greenhouse gases than you're creating in that process. The same cannot be said for other municipal operations, such as waste facilities or waste and recycling collection services, which rely on a large fleet of greenhouse gas emitting vehicles. In addition to the environmental impact, the traditional method of managing waste is a heavily burdened system with unrelenting costs like trucking, labor, and maintenance. So typically you would create your food waste at home, you throw it in the bin, then you drag the bin to the curb, the hauling truck comes, picks it up, brings that to a transfer station, then to a disposal and processing site. Then the compost is created, used in soil. The food cycler offers a truly decentralized approach that avoids unnecessary additional labor costs, greenhouse gas emissions from trucking and improper food waste breakdown, and infrastructure costs to the municipality or residents. So with the food cycler, you create the food waste at home, you put it in your cycler and run a cycle, and then you can use it. It's a low-cost method to improving organics diversion and green bin use. The second a food cycler is in a home, there is an immediate and impactful food waste diversion taking place. So one thing we learned from working with municipalities is that residents are very interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these things to their community. With the food cycler, you get to bring something innovative and tangible to your residents. And it's easy to use alongside a green bin, increasing participation in organics diversion all year round and hassle-free. I mentioned earlier that we're working with many municipalities across Canada. So to date, we've completed pilot programs in over 150 municipalities and over 10,000 households. The result has been overwhelmingly positive. We're able to achieve a significant amount of net new waste diversion, a generous user experience rating of 4.6 out of 5 stars, and a 98% participation rate. There's really no other waste diversion solution out there that has this type of participation, which is really encouraging to see. Many municipalities have expanded their programs to more households within the communities after the initial pilot program. So in Nelson, BC, for example, after 2 successful pilot programs, they are now putting a food cycler in every home of their city of 11,000 people. So the pilot program is a 12-week project. Residents would purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from the municipality. They use the unit, they track the number of cycles per week, and then at the end, residents get to keep the food cycler, and all that we ask is that they complete a brief survey so that we can evaluate the program's success. The results are then presented back to you in a final report or a feasibility study, if you will, and this data can then be used to support future waste management decisions or to accompany a recommendation for grant application to expand the program. And we offer the final report and grant writing support as part of the cost of the pilot program. So the funded pilots work based on the subsidy model where Food Cycle Science provides a discount, reducing the retail price by 50%. We then ask that the municipality subsidize the cost by $100 per household, and then participating residents will choose which model best suits their needs and contribute the remaining amount. And then again, after the 12-week pilot, the food cycler is theirs to keep. So here we have a pilot size recommendation for Thorold. So for a city of your size, we would recommend the 200 household pilot program. And since the municipal subsidy is $100 per household, a pilot size of 200 households would require an initial investment of $20,000 plus the cost of shipping and taxes. But however, this is just a recommendation. Please keep in mind that the minimum program size is 100 households, and we can explore other program sizes that are tailored to your needs or budget. And I also want to mention that in other municipalities where waste is managed by the upper tier, what we have seen is that they will request additional funding from the upper tier to help support this initiative. So it's just another option. So lastly, to summarize, here are some reasons that may resonate with you as you consider whether you should pilot with us. First, this is an opportunity to trial this technology at well below market rates. You will see immediate and impactful benefits such as increased waste diversion, lower disposal costs, and reduced greenhouse gas emissions. Finally, you can provide your constituents with a low-cost municipal service, all while being a steward for the environment. We welcome Thorold as a partner in the Food Waste Challenge, as we believe that your community is a great fit for the benefits of this program. Today, we would only ask that you kindly receive our presentation as information. Should there be any interest in partnering with us on a funded pilot program, we would just ask that you refer this to staff for a report and recommendation. Thank you so much for allowing me to present to you today. Our team is prepared to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Thank you very much, Maddie. That was very informative and interesting. I have 1,000 questions myself, but before that, I will open it up to other committee members to go first.
Perfect.
Councillor O'Hare, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maddie, thanks for the presentation. Really great program. I was just recently at AMO and spent a bit of time at your booth, just trying to gather as much information as I could about your program. I have a couple of questions. Now, how long have you been around the company manufacturing the food cycler?
Yeah, so the food cycler, we've been producing them since 2011. So been around for a few years now.
And how are those models from 2011 holding out? Have they changed drastically, or are they still the original design?
No, so they have changed pretty drastically. We are now using a new system called Vortec, which is the grinding and dehydrating system. This is like it's a kind of proprietary technology that we've created. It's a lot better, it's a lot faster and quieter. We are still selling our older models, but now we would recommend the newer models. And those are the ones that I showed you today. So those all have the better Vortex system in them.
And those would be the ones that you would recommend for the pilot project?
Yes, yeah, the Eco 3 and the Eco 5.
Okay, and where are they manufactured?
Currently, they're manufactured in China.
Okay. And if you could just remind me again, how many residents would you like, or how many units would you like in our pilot project?
So for your pilot project, we would recommend 200 households, which would be 200 units. Our minimum number is 100 units, so we are a little bit flexible on that if you would want to reduce it, but currently we think a 200 would be a great sample size.
Okay, and so the city would order those and pay for those, and then residents would come in and contribute their share and take one home?
That's
Is that how
correct.
it works?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And last question, you may not have the answer for this one right now, but you said you've worked with some municipalities that work with upper tier government. I wouldn't mind an example if you could email me if you don't know it off the top of your head. I'd be interested in that.
Yeah, I think Jacob, he might be able to answer that right away, but we will definitely be able to send you more information on those municipalities.
Great.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
happy to jump in here just and take a few seconds here to share some of our programs in that sense. So in Halliburton County, Halliburton County is one, Bruce County is another in Ontario, and then right now we are kind of in the early stages with York Region as well. I'll use Bruce County as I would say they're the best example, where some of the lower tiers joined the program just as individual municipalities. They did the pilot program, it went really well, and then Bruce County actually decided to step in as the upper tier and help fund the programs across any of the lower tiers who were interested. So I believe 7 of their lower tiers, I want to say there were only 1 or 2 who decided to opt out. But 7 of the lower tiers, they received funding from Bruce County to either expand their existing pilot programs or start a pilot program if they hadn't already. And for most of those municipalities, they took that funding from the county, implemented that as anywhere from 75 to 100 food cyclers per lower tier. And then those lower tiers also put in their own funding to then kind of match that or double that number so that they could get even more within the community. So that's an example where it started with the lower tiers and then the county saw the benefit. They decided to implement it as a county-wide program. And then right now with our program in King Township as well, they're kind of trailblazing the way out there. And it sounds like Newmarket, Aurora, a couple of the others are looking to join on as well. And then from there, it sounds like it wouldn't be a surprise if York Region decided to investigate a little further and see if they had a funding opportunity as well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions? Helen, go ahead.
Sure. I have 2 totally different questions, but one would be, actually I have 3 questions, but so if the pilot project was successful and the things were working well and people were liking them, the vision or the final target would be to not be picking up green bins at the curb anymore, because we're not going to save any CO2 if we're doing both. If half the houses enjoy using their food cycler and the other half just want to throw it in the green bin, then you still have to truck around and pick up everybody's green bin. So is the final vision that there'd be no green bin to pick up? And if so, then people who don't have a food cycler, would they not just be throwing their food in the garbage again? I guess I'm just sort of envisioning like what's the final outcome if the pilot is successful? Because I think some people wouldn't have the counter space or the interest in this.
That's a great question. I'm happy to jump in here for that one. So With our municipal partners that don't have green bin, you're correct. The end goal is for every household to either have a food cycler or a backyard composter or another option that's just a piece of the puzzle. For our green bin communities that we partnered with, what we really see as a good fit for the food cycler is to be another piece of that overall puzzle. I think Maddie had mentioned in the presentation that kind of across the board, participation in green bin programs can be challenging. Smells, the mess, haven't cleaned the bin. There's a lot of different challenges associated with it. So what we really find with our programs, like with King, for example, as well, it's the people who aren't using their green bin who will typically opt in for this pilot. It's the residents who are currently just putting their food waste in the garbage, or maybe they're composting in the summer months and in the winter, they're putting their food waste potentially in the garbage. And that's where that net new diversion statistic comes in of about 300 kilograms per household per year of food waste that's now no longer going to the landfill. In that exit survey that we send out as well, residents, they put in, prior to using the food cycler, what were they doing with their food waste? And for most of them who are in the program in these communities with green bins, they say that they were actually just putting their food waste in the garbage. So we really view this as a complement to the existing program. For a community like Thorold, we wouldn't want to try to replace the existing service. Obviously, green bins are quite effective in many areas, especially in your more urban areas where there's just more efficient collection and more population density. But for the residents who aren't using it and are still just throwing out their food waste due to a number of reasons, this would be a really great option for them. It's very convenient and easy to use.
And then my other question is, lots of what goes in my green bin is dog poo. So does this only take food waste, or would it take small yard waste? Would it take, and on that same line, have you upscaled this at all? Like, would there be something that would handle, like, would this technology handle a 10 liter, a 20 liter, a 30 liter? Like, if you had a restaurant and you wanted to do this, have you piloted or experimented with like commercial size ones?
Great question. So currently, to the dog poop issue, we really only recommend food waste go into the food cycler at this time. And then we are constantly innovating and improving. So we do have in the works right now a commercial unit that's not going to be available for a few more months or a little bit longer than that. But yeah, it's something that we're constantly working on. And there is another commercial side with even bigger units, but the restaurant one is the priority right now.
Right. Thanks. That's it for my questions for you right now.
Okay, thanks, Helen. Any other questions? Okay, then I guess I'll ask a few. So Helen, you asked one of the main questions I was going to ask about, replacing the green bin system. I see a lot of value in reducing the amount of waste that goes to landfill regardless, but it'd be great to get rid of the garbage truck pickup. But I understand that that's not the case in all cases. I just want to ask a little bit more the actual works of the food cycler itself. You're putting food in. Do you just put it in like all day long, and then at the end of the day you grind it up and then dump it somewhere? Or is that kind of like how people are using it today?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So currently how it works is there is a removable bucket in the machine. So how I use it, and I think most people use it, is you take this bucket out, I leave it on my counter, sort of like a kitchen catcher. I'm putting all of my food scraps into it throughout the day. By the end of the day, depends on how much food waste you have generated. Maybe you'll run a cycle, maybe you won't run a cycle. But there is a lid that has a filter in it. So keep the lid on top, and then there's no smells or bugs or anything that come out of this bucket while you're waiting to run the cycle. And then once you are ready, put that back in your food cycler, you turn it on, and then, yeah, it grinds and dehydrates the food. And in 4 to 8 hours, depending on how much food waste was in there, you're left with the dry biomass. Storage wise, it will store forever if it is kept in a dry and clean environment. So Again, what I currently do is I live in an apartment, so I'm putting it in a plastic bag and keeping it under my sink. And then when I go visit my parents on the weekend, I give it to them to use in their gardens. But there's so many different options. If you do have a house, you could put it in your backyard in a big bin. I know Jacob, he uses his green bin as his storage because he lives in the city. So he keeps it in there. And then once his green bin is full, brings it to the curb and has it disposed that way.
That makes sense. Thank you, Maddie. One other question, and I'm kind of thinking in terms of plant-based material putting in there. It kind of makes me nervous when you talk about meat and bones and things. So is there any concern about bacteria from that getting into the compost cycle? Is question one, and question two is related is you know, in the summer months, it can get pretty nasty with the green bin, and it's mostly from the meat products that can result in maggots and things like that. So how does that not happen, assuming it doesn't happen with this food cycler?
Yeah, so because of the temperatures in the food cycler, it reaches a point where all of the bacteria is essentially killed and it's not a factor anymore in terms of kind of harmful bacteria. But we do have, and we've done the science to see how you should be mixing that into your soil if you're doing it. So if you're creating a vegetable only byproduct, you can mix it into your soil in a 1:10 ratio. But if you do have meat in there, there's more nitrogen. So you should be mixing in a 1:20 ratio. And then your second question is, because it's dry, it doesn't produce any of the maggots. As soon as it does get wet, it will start to break down. But if you're mixing it into your soil and you're really mixing it in, you won't see any maggots or you won't see any bug decaying. If you're just kind of sprinkling it outside and it's getting wet, it will start to rot a little bit, but only in like a natural sense. It's not anything harmful.
Right. Thank you.
I'll just add on to that quickly, if you don't mind. Thank you, Chair. When it's in the green bin as well, because it is completely dry and odorless, and there's all the food waste in there has been completely, grinded down, dehydrated out. There's no moisture, there's no smells. It really is not an attractant for animals or bugs. So when it's in that bin, obviously we want to have our green bins closed anyway, but when it's in there, if a fly or whatever were to get in there, it wouldn't have anything to really lay its eggs in. It's almost as if it's just a bin of soil at that point. And then just to kind of add on to Maddie's point as well about when you do put it into the garden, sometimes there is a little bit of mold that can happen while it's being reintegrated into the soil with water and moisture getting back in and that reactivation of the bacteria. But it's a natural process, and then that will kind of come and go. Yeah.
I think
that was
that's
sufficient.
Yeah, that's a good selling feature, just because people don't like dealing with the green bin during the summer. It gets nasty. Linda.
Yeah, I just had some questions about the filters. Are they reusable filters that can be washed and replaced? Are they filters that need to be replaced on a regular basis? How often? What is the cost of the filters? We know the cost of the machine, but the cost of the filters, and how often are they replaced or cleaned or whatever? Just tell me more about the filters.
Great question. So the filters are carbon pellets. So there is a little compartment in the side of your food cycler that you fill the carbon, you put the carbon in there. And then as it's cycling, the odors are going through the carbon and it's reducing all the odors. It really depends on how often you use your food cycler. If you are using it really often, you might need to change it in three months. But typically we would recommend it's like a 3 to 4 month refill. Like you need to change your carbon pellets. There is an indicator on the food cyclers that will let you know when it's reached 500 cycles, which is just a general time frame of when you should probably change. But the best indicator is just your nose. So if you do start to smell any foods, we would recommend that you then go and change your filter. The carbon pellets are biodegradable and compostable. And then the cost to them is, I think we would send your residents a link to our municipal webpage where they would be able to purchase these carbon pellets at a lower price. I think it's around $20. Jacob would know it a little bit better, but yeah, I hope that kind of answers all of your questions about the filter.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just one add-on question to that is where is your source of carbon for these carbon filters? The pellets, what are they made of?
So the pellets are just activated charcoal, and it's sourced in Canada. For some of our larger programs, like out in the city of Nelson in BC, who's doing their citywide 11,000 resident program, they actually have a local supplier in Nelson, and they have a bulk refill station and a grocery store. So for the larger programs, we really do try to find a local source in that community. But for our general pilot programs across the country, we have our warehouse, one in BC, one in Ontario here up near Ottawa, and the carbon is sourced in Canada, and then it gets distributed out from those two warehouses.
Interesting. Thank you, Jacob. Councillor O'Hare.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maddie, I just want to direct one more question back to you, and this is just on what you said earlier about the heat in the unit killing all bacteria. And as we know, there's many good bacteria as well. So can you just confirm whether or not the byproduct is going to be nutritious, or is it going to be completely idle of any value?
A great question. Thank you so much. So we do have lots of science, and we have a research team working out of the University of Carleton, where they are looking at how we call it foodalizer, how that works with plants. And we have shown that it is very nutritious, because once it is rehydrated, the food does start to break down even quicker, releasing all of those nutrients back into the soil. But I think Jacob might be able to speak to it a little bit more.
Thanks, Maddie, and thank you for the question, Councillor. So in terms of the nutrient value, the byproduct is very dense in nutrients, and that's why we recommend those ratios of mixing it into your garden, the 1:10 or 1:20 ratio. So it is very high in nitrogen and the other beneficial nutrients that go towards soil health. But in terms of the actual microbe activity, I guess a way to relate it would be when they say, a household cleaner kills 99.9% of bacteria. Similar process when it's put in the food cycler, 99.9% of bacteria is killed off. And because the soil has those microbes in it already, when you are integrating the food cycler byproduct back into the soil, those microbes activate with the byproduct. The nutrient value is there, and it's just that microbe activation that needs to happen. So if you were to just put a plant in a pot of strictly byproduct, it wouldn't be beneficial. It would probably zap the plant because it's too concentrated and it doesn't have the microbes that are in soil and in natural environments. So that's why you always want to mix it in and integrate it the way you would a fertilizer. But in terms of harmful bacteria and those microbes, those are killed off, but the nutrient value is still retained.
Okay, thank you.
So fertilizer, you're not enriching it with microbes at the end of the day. Okay. Is there any more questions? Oh, I think Helen, go
I have
ahead.
one last question with, we're talking about reducing the volume and the weight of this. So where does the moisture go? Like if I throw a bunch of tomatoes and rotten apples and peaches in there, where does is there like a steam that comes out of the unit, or is there a bucket that has to be dumped? Where does the moisture go to?
The moisture just does go back into the air. So it goes through your filter, but it happens at such a slow rate that you don't see any steam. Maybe a little bit hot, warm above it because of the heat, but nothing crazy.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, seeing no more questions, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very informative, and thanks for answering our questions.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Take care. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this topic? Okay, seeing none, I will move on. Okay, number 7, correspondence on the agenda. I understand that Natalie Green has been appointed to the committee as the NPCA representative, as Carrie has moved on. I do not believe Natalie has joined us, or has she?
She sends her regrets today. She was really looking forward to coming, but said she would be unable to make it today. And just another addition to this topic, the committee applications for this committee and other vacant have closed, and council will be making a decision on potential new members for this committee on Tuesday's meeting.
Okay, thank you. And in terms of, Natalie's appointment, do you see that as a temporary appointment or as a permanent replacement for Carrie? Was
As
that
far
me?
as I sorry, Mr. Chair, as far as I understand, she is the permanent replacement.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go on to next item, 7.2, which is in regards to the municipality of Wawa regarding regulations for importation and safe use of lithium-ion batteries. From that council meeting, I understand that they have directed staff to prepare a report for council respecting the use, storage, and transportation of lithium-ion batteries within the city of Thorold. And just looking at the actual resolution from Wawa, they're really referencing the non-OEM materials, so aftermarket batteries. So I'm not exactly sure how much that's going to relate to the work that EVSX will be doing. That is the battery recycling plant that came to us about a year ago for their work in Thorold South. But I don't believe at this point there's really anything more this committee can add to the council action. I'm sure that there's existing provincial and federal regulations around handling of batteries, just as there are for the transportation and storage of dangerous materials like gasoline, oil, propane, etc. So I'm not sure if there's any other comments or questions on this discussion. Linda, go ahead.
Now, it was my understanding that they were going to start with just the regular household batteries to process them, and that's about 80% or so they're processing, and they would work towards getting to the lithium ones. But it was my understanding that lithium would be down the road a ways. It wouldn't be immediate processing of them for that factory that was going into Thorold South.
That's correct. Phase 1 was alkaline batteries, and then a subsequent phase would include lithium ion or lithium batteries.
Eventually.
And, they do need to get approval from the provincial government for that. They don't necessarily have to have city council approval for that. However, they did come to us last time. I expect the business owner would do the same as he has committed to do, to come to us before they start working on lithium batteries. And at that point, perhaps we could have a further discussion with city staff report based on the safe handling, etc. Although, like I said, that discussion really was around non-OEM, whereas I suspect what EVSX will be doing is all OEM, but I don't know. That's a question we can ask.
Okay. We'll look forward to more information.
Sounds good. Okay, I see no other hands up for that one. Where are we? Okay, so number 8, committee business. So the big one here is a greening Thorold proposal that we pulled together, and it's attached to the agenda. I'm not going to read it verbatim, but I do want to go through the high level of the proposal. And we start off by talking about as the summers in Thorold and the world get hotter and periods of intense rain become more frequent, it's going to be important to invest in green infrastructure and natural solutions in order to keep the residents as well as the properties of Thorold as cool and dry as possible in the years to come. So we believe the best way that this can be accomplished is through urban forestry guidelines, as well as updated municipal policies that are applied to new developments as well as existing properties. And that's municipal owned as well as private property. A simple example would be for the city to plant more trees in parks, ensuring that the children in playgrounds, as well as parents and spectators at the athletic fields, are well shaded from the heat of the sun. The high-level objectives of the proposal include increasing the city's tree canopy and overall amount of natural green space, as well as encourage citizen participation via boulevard gardens and personal rain gardens or native plant gardens. And we believe these objectives are all consistent with the City of Thorold's strategic plan and official plan. One thing to note is that Environment Canada, among other experts in the field, have stated that maintaining at least 30% of natural land is the bare minimum requirement for a healthy environment. And this 30% objective has been adopted by Niagara region. So it'd be great to see something similar in Thorold. Just for your information, my understanding is that Thorold's current natural wetland forest coverage is actually well below 30%. The proposal is that the city or invest larger time and money in developing these urban forestry practices, as best practices are already well documented and easily adapted for Thorold. It's also note that there's many federal, provincial, and private grants that exist for purchasing trees. But that said, we believe that it would be important for the city to secure some operating dollars in the next round of budgeting to ensure that staff time is dedicated to maintaining and sustaining the activities, assuming that this proposal goes forward. And in conclusion, we're recommending
Oops, you're freezing.
We lost you, Mark.
in the proposal. Are there any questions on, sorry? Is there any questions on that? And by the way, was I here the whole time? Because
No, we lost you right at in conclusion. So we need the conclusion again.
oh, okay. Okay, so that's good. Thank you. So that's not too bad. So let me just go back then. In conclusion, that we're recommending that a working group be established consisting of city staff, horticultural experts, as well as a couple of assess and pursue the recommendations of this proposal. Okay. Is the proposal itself.
Yeah, we're still losing you.
Oh, man.
Maybe
Yeah.
turn off your video and maybe the audio will be, less data transfer.
Fine, I won't take that personal.
No.
Me, that's fine. Okay. All right. Can you hear me now?
We
Go
can. Start with in conclusion again. and
Okay,
go
so
right
what
through.
Okay, one more time. Third time's the charm. So in conclusion, we're recommending that a working group be established consisting of city staff, horticultural experts, as well as a couple of members from this committee, is put together to pursue the recommendations made in the proposal. That's what we would like to see. So if there's any questions on the proposal, we can talk about that. Then we can look at bringing forward a motion. But the first action is to see if there's any questions on the proposal. Not seeing any, then I will go back.
Oh, we have a question.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, another question. Did you want to start with your possible motion for this proposal and then the working group?
Whatever you recommend. So I would propose that the following motion be brought to the city council that the council directs staff to review this committee's Greening Thorold initiative, and that council directs staff to work with the committee on implementing the recommendations, and that council directs staff to consider the funding mentioned in the 2025 budget process. Is it possible to get a seconder for that motion?
So quick question, do we put a timeline on these things? Like, when should council direct staff to review it and get back to us by the end of the year? Or is there, is that part of a resolution that you put some time on it, or it just happens as fast as it happens?
I can answer that if you like. Something like this would likely go on October 1st to that meeting, and then to be considered that meeting.
Okay.
Justin, I would just ask that on the third line to replace green with greening as an action, Greening Thorold.
Oh, for the first, okay.
Can I get a mover and a seconder for this motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Longo and Helen. All in favor? Any opposed?
Mark, can I make a comment first, please?
Absolutely. Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you. I just want to, in the last few weeks, there's been some emails from residents and some emails from myself to staff. I just want to make, I guess, this committee aware that my feeling on greening Thorold, absolutely, I'm 100% behind it, but I believe with this motion and the working group we put forward, we also need to look at how we maintain what we plant. It's become quite an issue in my eyes and with others. We plant a lot of trees and then we forget about these trees. And the conversation I had with staff in the last few weeks is our trees in our newer communities look more like bushes than trees. They become hazards, they become eyesores, and I don't think they do just cause to seeing these trees grow to maturity. So I just wanted to make that comment that this working group not only needs to look at the greening, but also, and not just the planting, but how we go forward maintaining these trees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, great comment.
I agree. I think that was one of the driving forces behind this, is that if we're not going to maintain the trees, then we can plant as many as we want, but we're never going to grow any trees. There was an action item for me in the last meeting to sort of send in something about that, just how a lot of mowers are damaging the big trees. A lot of mowers are killing the small trees, and that gets expensive. As soon as you scrape some bark off with a mower, you can get the fungus into the tree. Now you have a dangerous limb and so on. So I think instead of having that as an isolated, we need them to mow around the trees properly comment, we're putting it, with the boulevard plantings and with these greening initiative. So I think we're trying to address a big picture. Part of the issue too, I think Mark brought up was in the report, is that we plant too many Norway maples, and those are fast, short-lived, weak trees. So if you see a subdivision full of trees that really don't live that long, they're probably Norway maple, and they rot and they have dangerous limbs and stuff. So we do put something specifically about, there's too many, what'd you say, Mark? 40% of the trees in Thorold are Norway maple, and they're not going to become big, successful trees.
Correct. So back to Councillor Longo's initial comment, absolutely part of the urban forestry guidelines will be what is the right tree to plant, what is the right method to plant it and what is the maintenance required. But you'll find that if we plant the right tree with the right method, then it really reduces the amount of maintenance that is required on these trees. And I also believe if we do more naturalization between trees, depends on the application. You may not be able to do it on somebody's front lawn, but if there's a park area that you want to add trees to, then you also do naturalization between the trees, and that will reduce the amount of lawn cutting and whippersnipping. So absolutely, I believe that this plan will address the concerns of residents. Linda.
Yeah, and you're saying that if we plant the right trees, like the trees native to Canada, that's what we need to plant, trees native to this area. We're kind of on the northern edge of the Carolinian forest here. And then we plant other trees in between, which would make an understory for animals, for little animals like we have all around here, squirrels and bunnies but the understory, yes, would cover the ground and would be you wouldn't need to get near the trees in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it has to be trees indigenous to Canada. Norway maples are not. And I think probably the reason they're planted is because they're cheap. They're inexpensive, and and maybe the native trees are a little more expensive, but they're certainly worthwhile, and they would last a lot longer, and they would look a lot better.
Correct, and the native trees are also much better in terms of providing
Survival.
habitat for as you mentioned, insects, small animals, large animals. From my understanding, the Norway maple literally supports 2 species that we have in this area, whereas if you put in a white oak, it literally supports hundreds of species. So we want to put shade. We want to keep shade on people. We want to have more earth absorbing water, and we want to be able to also provide more habitat for native life.
Yeah.
That's all part of the plan.
Good.
Okay. And I think part of why it's sort of a larger plan is, if a subdivision goes in, it should just be the planners, the municipal planners saying, no, you can't actually plant Norway maples in this subdivision. Like, don't throw this liability onto a homeowner to have to deal with, or the city, or whoever. So I think that's why we were looking larger scale with the city involved, the municipality involved in making decisions where they decide what trees get planted or what the best guidelines are, or telling a subdivision builder that they need to plant 10 different species of trees instead of just one that are all going to die on the same, disease or whatever. So
exactly.
I was happy that it addresses a lot of these different ideas that have been bouncing around with a lot of people for a while now.
Yeah.
Okay. So Justin, we're okay then with what we've discussed in the motion?
Yes, so I'll have this attached to a memo for council on October 1st. Now, if you want to form a working group on this, that would be a separate thing we can do now if you want.
Oh, well, should we wait until we get the feedback?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
I
can
think
do that,
so.
and that's probably a good idea too.
Yeah, I think that'll make sense. And then we'll form the working group. Okay.
Perfect. Yep.
Okay, then I will move on to 8.2 working group updates. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Don't we need to vote on this, Mr. Chair?
We did.
Yeah,
We had a mover Councillor Longo and Helen, and then we voted as well.
I don't remember voting.
Super fast.
okay,
Oh,
yeah, sorry.
It's
We
okay.
can do the vote again if you like.
Yeah, so it was a motion, it was seconded, and then all in favor, we'll do it again.
Yep.
And any opposed?
Okay.
Okay, Councillor O'Hare is frozen, or is it me?
It's Councillor O'Hare.
Well, you have enough, so I think we're okay.
Okay.
We're,
Okay.
we're getting pretty dark outside right now.
Hey,
That might be the
yes, the
problem.
storms are brewing.
Mhm.
Okay, let's move on to the working group updates. I'm not sure there will be many, but the first one is the Earth Day group. Are there any discussions or updates on this working group? Not seeing any. So I will move to the boulevard planting. And it's unfortunate that Leslie could not be with us today, but my suggestion here is that we actually disband this working group, the boulevard planting working group, as it's going to be replaced by the larger greening Thorold. However, I suspect we should not take that action today. Let's wait and make sure that we get City Council approval to form this new working group. But that is the intent, is that everything that was in the boulevard planting working group will be covered by the greening Thorold. If there's no questions or comments on that, I will move on. 8.2.3, the committee long-term goals. So a little bit of an update here. There's a few different items we're talking about here. One of them is the biodiversity loss prevention. And the update really is from the last meeting is that we've mentioned that we have already lost over 70% of the natural land in the municipality. So I had requested that the city provide maps of the existing green spaces within municipal boundaries, and the city has provided that. So we will need to take further action on that. And again, it could be part of the Greening Thorold initiative. I really do see it taking off there. If there's no questions or comments on that, and thank you very much, Jessica, for providing the updated map. Okay, the next one was on Lake Gibson corridor, and I see Joe's not here today. It would be great if we could get an update from the city on this, and if there's anything that this committee can do to help speed things along. Jessica, could you talk to that at all?
Yeah, so I got direction from staff and just heard that it's I'm not sure where it's at, but it's kind of a slow process, so there's no updates on it.
Okay. Is it possible to get something more around that in terms of a date for a date as to when we'll get more, or at least some understanding of some of the granularity in terms of what is the steps that are going on so that we can understand?
Yeah, I'll see what I can dig up on it.
Thank you, Jessica. Justin?
Yes, and we can talk to Mark Davidson, who's the liaison for that group as well. And I can ask him if there is any updates to let us know, and we can share with this committee
That'd be great. Thank you.
as they become available.
Understood. Okay. And the last one on the long-term goals is referring to climate mitigation and adaptation. And we had discussed potential energy efficiency programs. So the question to the city was, has there already been any efforts made previously to understand the city's energy consumption via an audit or a plan to reduce energy consumptions related to city-owned properties and vehicles? So again, I look to Jessica. And sorry if I sprung this one on you. I just saw it in the minutes.
Yeah, I don't believe we had discussed that one. So this is just looking for an update on energy efficiency.
Yeah, has there been any programs in the past? Has there been an audit done? Anything like that specific to municipal buildings and vehicles?
Okay, I can look into that one.
Yeah, and if not, then that's something that we'll ask for. to see if there's any potential improvements in terms of energy efficiency.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so that's it.
Sorry,
we-
Mr. Chair, just to add to that, there may be a conservation demand management report coming at a future council meeting as well, I see.
A conservation demand planning?
Management
Yes.
report, which
Yes.
is the report that municipalities have to do.
The requirement for the provincial government, understood.
Right, yeah. So I'm not sure the details of it, but that should be, I believe, coming at a future meeting soon, I think.
Okay, so that may have the detail we're looking for, may not, I'm not sure.
I'm not certain, yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Thank you. So let's move into the roundtable discussion. And are there any comments or questions anybody has?
Well, I
Linda?
just, well, with Justin, that report that he just referred to, that will be shared with us. That will be shared with the committee.
Likely, as it will likely relate to this committee, so yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor O'Hare, do you have anything for roundtable?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just going in order of who I see on my screen here. Helen?
No, not that I can think of, thanks.
Okay. Councillor Longo?
No, nothing. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I see Elisa on the attendance here, but I'm assuming she's city staff.
Yes, sorry, I'm the new planning student. I just wanted to sit in on this meeting.
Oh, sounds good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Justin or Jessica, any thing you want to add?
Nothing from me.
Nothing for me either.
Okay. Then, okay, so next item is the next meeting. And based on the timing of getting feedback from council on the Greening Thorold initiative, it makes sense to have the next meeting on November 1st, unless there's any opposition or other suggestions. Seeing none, then we'll adjourn the meeting at this point. As there's no further business, this meeting is adjourned at 11:03 a.m. And thank you very much for your participation. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.